know you have the truth. And we start seeing the sign. Everything is coming in place. I pray every night, and I have a couple of dreams at night, and I know Jesus tell you and tell me that he's coming soon. I can wait when he's coming soon, because this world is unbelievable. We can't stand it no more. I love you, Brother Stare. I love you with all my heart. God bless you. Bye.
I bless you, my brother. And I will pray that God will continue to strengthen you. And I pray that somehow that he will make you realize that what you need is him, not me. I am the messenger trying to point your heart to him, and I have already turned his heart back to you. I know that. As far as you going to work and sending money to help the broadcast in Boston, I don't think you could earn enough. The broadcast in Boston was costing us over $8,000 a month. I had to cut back on that, and you still get 2 hours every night, and that is more than many people get. I would also advise you to get a shortwave radio. There you could hear many more hours. Or remember the phone number that we give you. You can call on the phone, and you can hear the broadcast on the telephone almost any time of day, 7 days a week. I just pray that you will continue to search out and prepare your heart to meet Jesus, for he is coming soon, and his children are the apple of his eye. They are the ones he's coming for, to bring us to himself. God bless you, and be strong. Jesus is coming. God bless you, and Maranatha, and except those days be shortened, there would no flesh be saved alive. Just listen to this most recent news item. Recently, citizen scientist Forrest Mintz told me about a speech he heard at the Texas Academy of Science, during which the speaker, a world-renowned ecologist, advocated for the extermination of 90% of the human species in a most horrible and painful manner. Apparently, at the speaker's direction, the speech was not videotaped, so therefore we have to depend upon this gentleman, Forrest Mintz, who was there and heard and wrote down what he heard. If the professional community has lost its sense of moral outrage when...
Es geht weiter bei Radio Rumänien International mit einer Zusammenfassung der wichtigsten Produkte.
Святый безсмертный, помилуй нас. Святый Боже, святый кріпкий, святий безсмертний, помилуй нас. Будьмо уважні, миру всім, премудрість, будьмо уважні. Помоліться і воздайте Господи.
با فردا در تماس باشید. 20420 725 970 30.
You're listening to the Overcomer Ministry radio broadcast from Walterboro, South Carolina. For our most current contact information, please visit www.overcomerministry.org.
Le Centre de recherche pour le développement international CRD a mené des recherches dans 5 pays, dont le Bénin, le Burkina, la Côte d'Ivoire, l'Afrique du Sud et le Kenya. Le professeur Kimou Assis José Carlos, qui a
mis une pression très ferme sur son homologue iranien face aux emprisonnements inacceptables de ressortissants français.
Et puis politique toujours, c'est jusqu'à ce soir le premier tour de l'élection à la tête du parti de droite Les Républicains. En France, les votants vont départager 3 candidats. Aurélien Pradier.
Аллилуйя. Слухай, дочко, і споглянь.
Akad donc l'économie pour qu'on so amija kalela.
اللتين هما ذاتهما
mun fi karfi ga sarrafa mai a bangaren kasuwanci ita gwamnati tunda muka yi
the World War II, the amount of weapons. I mean, it's staggering how much weaponry. I mean, you look at some of the numbers of artillery shells that are being fired every day compared to, Afghanistan at its height, and it's just remarkable. This is as close to World War II as we've gotten since that war. With the exception of Korea, I guess. I don't, but I mean, this is just staggeringly beyond anything I've experienced in my life.
Joshua is right about these staggering numbers. I mean, I think in the summer, Russia in 2 days would fire all the munition stock that the United Kingdom has. Think about just this number.
Yeah.
You put it like that. I see what you both mean about the scale of what people are having to endure. It's 17 minutes past the hour. You're with Weekend from the BBC World Service. Let's turn our attention to the world of sport, and Paul Serres has the latest sports news.
England take on Senegal in the round of 16 at the World Cup in Qatar later on Sunday. The BBC football John Murray looks ahead to the match.
It's the European Championship, but it's England who will be favourites to reach a World Cup quarter-final for the second time under Gareth Southgate, particularly as Senegal are without their inspirational but injured record goal-scorer Sadio Mane, who's had to miss the tournament, and their important midfielder Idrissa Gueye is also out of this match because he's suspended. Despite the criticism of some of England's play here, no one scored more goals in the group stage, and they're now one of only 4 teams still unbeaten at this World Cup. England have never lost to African opponents, but whoever goes through will face the winners of the earlier match between Poland and the defending champions France.
The Three Lions manager Gareth Southgate says they are expecting a tough test.
Yeah, we've been very impressed. We know that they're African champions. Very proud, great competitive spirit, a lot of belief in the team, some excellent individual players who can cause problems, but a good structure to the team as well. So I think Aliou has done a fantastic job. They were very unlucky not to qualify from the group in Russia, and they've deservedly done it this time, so we know exactly the size of the task ahead of us.
The Netherlands will face Argentina in the first of the 4 quarter-finals in the competition. A Lionel Messi-inspired Argentina were 2-1 winners over Australia, while the Dutch beat the USA 3-1 in Saturday's other last 16 tie. The USA head coach Greg Berhalter says they fell short of their expectations.
This is a tough one, obviously, to swallow for us. The guys put everything they had into it. Such a good group of guys, such a close-knit group of guys. You just want more for them. And tonight we came up short. We set out with a goal to show the rest of the world how we can play soccer. And, I think we partially achieved that, although we fell short of our goals.
And in boxing, Tyson Fury stopped his fellow Briton, Derek Chisora, in the 10th round of their WBC heavyweight title fight in front of 60,000 fans at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London.
That was Paul Serres. Let's stay with the World Cup, as he was saying. France playing Poland today, England versus Senegal later. 2 more games in the last 16. Maz Farouki is in Doha. 2 great games ahead. Maz, give us a sense of the atmosphere in Doha today.
Yeah, still quiet, but building, Julian. You know, we're about 8 hours or so away from kickoff on the third in France against Poland, as you say. We're not used to seeing the defending champions get through the group stage at a World Cup for 14 years. So it is a bit weird to see France at this point, particularly when we think back to their pre-tournament injuries they had. Of course, the Ballon d'Or winner, Karim Benzema, pulling up injured in training a couple of days before France kicked off their tournament. So they have rallied very impressively. They made 9 changes for their final group game, which they lost to Tunisia, but I wouldn't read too much into that. And the French fans I've been speaking to on the streets around us over the last couple of days certainly aren't, because they recognise that the strongest 11 that Didier Deschamps puts out is a very impressive one. Kylian Mbappe, of course, has been in fantastic form, 3 goals already at this championship. Just needing one more goal to become his country's all-time leading goal scorer, and Poland just sneaked through to the last 16 on goal difference. So I think they might find this one a bit of a struggle, but as we talked about already, we have seen plenty of at this tournament. The other group game, we heard John Mary's
call for mass death when he reflected on the oil situation. He said, as the fossil fuels are running out, so I think we may have to cut back to 2 billion, which would be about 1/3 as many people. So the oil crisis alone may require eliminating 2/3 of the world's population. When he was asked how soon must the mass dying begin if Earth is to be saved, apparently fairly soon, the professor suggested. He might be around when the killer disease goes to work. He was born in 1939, was part of the last generation. Isn't this something? When he finished his remarks that 2/3 or 90% of the world's population must be eliminated, and that Ebola virus would be the means that would do it most sufficiently, the audience applauded. It wasn't merely a smattering of polite clapping with audiences grammatically reserving for poor or boring figures. It was a loud, vigorous, and enthusiastic applause. Then came the question and answer session. Professor stated that other diseases are also efficient killers. The audience laughed when he said, you know, the bird flu is good too. They laughed again when he proposed, with a reserved note of glee in his voice, we need to sterilize everybody on Earth. After noting that the audience did not represent the general population, a questioner asked, what kind of reception have you received as you presented these ideas to other audiences that are not representative of us? He replied, I speak to the converted. He spoke glowingly. Police state in China that enforces their one-child policy. He said smarter people have fewer kids. Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is just a report of what has been already told you, as we mentioned to you, the Georgia Guidestones and other things, where the powers that be behind the scenes are slowly laying a groundwork to eliminate masses, billions of people upon the face of the earth. Have I not told you that over 6 million are going to die on this earth in this final confront against the sovereignty of Almighty Yahweh? And the reason for that is that Satan wants to kill every living human being if he can, hoping to get those saints of God that are to be alive when Jesus comes. That's why the Lord is going to shorten these days so that all flesh will not be destroyed. Even so come, Lord Jesus. That was a conference that took place back in 2006. I'm telling you, friends, we hear these things. We've known that the AIDS virus was created in our scientists. Do you understand that most of these viruses are manipulated by evil minds as they develop your vaccinations? They're using viruses to counteract viruses. And it's just like the bomb. It's such devastation in it, but they are convinced that they can control how to use it and to kill whom they want to and spare who they want to. First of all, they're seeking to kill everybody who might threaten the lifestyle of the elite. Of course, this is diabolic. It's Satan trying to preserve himself, and so he's getting people to do the same thing. And it ain't far off. It ain't far off. The gentleman says, I still can't get out of my mind a pleasant spring day in Texas when a few hundred scientists of the Texas Academy of Science gave a standing ovation for a speaker who they heard advocate for the slow and torturous death of over 5 million or 5 billion human beings by using viruses such as Ebola, the Spanish flu, what other? They tell us that the Spanish flu killed 50 million people. And even smallpox could be used. And they are convinced that they have the control of it, like they believe they have the control of AIDS, and they can cure it if they have to. They think they're safe, wise in their own conceits. Let me just tell you one more time. This Dr. Eric Panaka advocated at a Academy of Science meeting in Texas. He endorsed airborne Ebola as an efficient means for eliminating 90% of the world's population, using the virus and sending it forth under the scientific control by the powers that be. He received an enthusiastic and prolonged standing ovation as he presented his diabolical, demonic vision of destroying over 5 billion people. Now, all I can say to you folk is that I have told you that before Jesus comes, chaos worldwide through war and famine and pestilence is going to kill over 6 billion people. Satan had put it in their minds. God has foretold it. It will be done. And God will have to intervene, just like he said, or there will be left no one alive on this earth. Help us, Lord Jesus. God, help us, the elect, who must be preserved, because without your help, we will not be so. Father, in Jesus' name, I commend the people of God in this last generation, and the very God of peace, separate us, sanctify us, so that our whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless until the coming of the Lord.
So not so much teaching it itself, but just trying to pursue it, which I like. The fact that there is a constant sense of trying to improve, measuring your capabilities with other people.
Rücksichtnahme zusammen. Sie besteht darin, die Bedürfnisse.
你的全世界。
Your opponent. Oh goodness, that's a good question. I think so. It doesn't happen often, but there have been a couple of times when I've sparred with someone who I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
And I found that instead of trying to win, I'm a bit more obsessed with trying to hurt, and that takes me out of my zone.
It takes me out of the flow. It doesn't let me execute the skills that I feel I've practiced.
Is that why professional boxers seem to try to agitate each other so that they don't perform as well?
Right. Professional boxing is kind of halfway in the entertainment industry, halfway in the sporting industry. And I guess naturally wanting to draw bigger audiences, get bigger crowds, get bigger gate fees, bigger pay-per-views, etc. You have to kind of force a narrative. And that narrative might be, you said this to me, I'm going to say this to you as well. Yeah, so kind of pretending that there's a hatred that might not actually be there.
They go on drinks later.
Yeah, a lot of the time, right? Like straight after one of these big, like, high-value fights, straight afterwards, they're hugging each other and shaking each other's hand and stuff. In the amateur boxing side of life, I don't think there's a need for it.
2,500 years ago, an old man rode on his buffalo and headed west of China. Before he vanished into the wild, he left behind a book of 5,000 words, which for the next 2.5 millennia would have shaped the Chinese way of thinking. Subscribe to the sayings of Lao Tzu and find out why generals with wisdom yield after winning the ultimate battle, and how staying behind just might help you get ahead of others. The Sayings of Lao Tzu is available on all major podcast platforms.
You're listening to The Bridge.
Also a DJ.
Yeah.
So is this something you did back at home or you picked up here?
Yeah. So I took way more of an interest in it when I came to China. Back in the UK, always like heavily involved in music. When I was back in London, it was more the acoustic side of stuff. I played bass for a few years. Kind of dabbled in quite a few bands and stuff. And when I first came to China, that was something I was looking to continue. But my interest in electronic music grew more and more. And I suppose the medium I wanted to creatively express myself changed. So instead of a bass, it was a set of decks. And
So how do you, you're playing other people's music mostly.
Yeah.
How do you insert yourself into that process? What does the DJ actually do?
I've always had a thing for like acquiring music, like buying, downloading from like a really young age, like 11, 12. And anyone who knows anything about downloading music, that might not necessarily be the most legal. For a long time, that was the only way to do it. So I've always kind of had hard drives worth of music. And so naturally, just keeping up that hobby, I suppose, you obviously want to kind of share some of your finds with an audience. And so compiling a list, okay, it depends. So like I have a radio show, right? And it's like every month, not interviews or talking or anything like this, but just releasing a mix. And essentially what I want to do is find everything that I found recently. And
showcase the highlights.
Yeah. But I'm not sure how pretentious this sounds, but let's go with it. I want to kind of build a mood. Essentially, the idea that I have behind making a mix is kind of in a journey. And if you kind of have a graph on the x-axis, you have time, and I suppose on the y-axis you have like energy, feel, mood, and I try and kind of explore as many of them as possible while seamlessly connecting them together.
What type of electronic music?
So, being from the UK, I try to be... No, not quite. I want my signature sound to be UK garage. Garage is kind of an evolution from a form of house music that was really popular in New York in the 80s. And then came over to the UK in the early 90s, kind of sped up, became very bass heavy. And if you know anything about grime? No? Okay. This is all good. Grime is kind of like an evolution of that in drill, which has become really popular recently. It's kind of an evolution of grime. But basically UKG is a very strong proponent of UK electronic music. And I want to try and be the signature source of that sound here in Beijing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you do perform in front of crowds. I have seen that in addition to your radio show. So when you do that, do you ever, because of the mood of the people that you are performing with, or change your selection based on the mood that they're giving you back?
I mean, I guess when I started playing to bigger crowds, I was always trying to imagine what it'd be like and then make a very specific list according to that. It worked sometimes, but other times it didn't. Because I just had to kind of grow a confidence in my improvisation selection, like on the spot. So like choosing sounds, you haven't really decided beforehand. So yeah, I will pick a track based on how I feel the crowd.
So it's kind of some interaction with the crowd.
Yeah.
What is kind of like comedy?
Oh yeah, imagine. Yeah.
Could you elaborate?
Well, if we're doing a paid show, open mics are different. Open mics, we just go on and do whatever we want. That's why it's free. For paid shows, we do want to have an organization or order to the jokes that we're going to tell. And usually we have a better idea if we go into the room or we're performing on the later spots so that we can people to what kind of materials, and we will adjust our sets according to that. But then the thing that resonates the most is that it just doesn't always work. You would watch the other comedians perform, you're like, oh, today's audience will probably react to these things better, or this is how I'm going to change. I'm going to tell this person that last. And then they just sit there and go, haha.
You see.
Eventually just got to be, just got to have a really thick skin. And just this is my set.
I mean, I don't have a problem with public speaking. I actually love it. You say, oh, we need you to give a speech about something. It's like, give me the mic. I'm ready to go up there. But like comedy, oh my gosh, that is terrifying.
We recently started doing this very mini workshop thing with 2 other comics, just the 3 of us, a casual Friday night here, and we talk about our sets, we talk about comedy in general, and I asked them about, if really I get feedback from the audience saying that we've heard this joke or we're not surprised by this joke. What do you do? What should I do?
It takes the pressure off of you. You just have some people who are not so fun.
Yes, it's their fault now.
The question for you, right? Do you ever find that like in the audience, obviously it's full of loads of people and you're not trying to address every individual person. Do you find that like some members of the audience are like a lightning rod for the rest? So you're kind of choosing specific people and using them as a gauge for the whole room.
I think the best way to answer that is that I can't really choose one person to gauge the whole room, but I can choose this one person to make the whole room a little bit more lively. There is a target. I did a show on the rooftop a couple of weeks ago, and I felt really bad because I was doing a joke about, how people were having farewell parties, people leaving. I was doing a joke about having farewell parties where people leaving China were going to all these events, and I did a quick little survey. I said, hey, is any foreigner in this room that is going to leave? And this one gentleman, I felt so bad for him because he thought that we didn't have enough chairs. And he was already on the shorter end of, of a guy with this extremely tiny chair. So when I look at the audience, I look at lines, and when it gets to him, there's a dent. I could see him so clearly. And when I asked that question, he was the only person that raised his hand. For that entire set, I was just dogging his, and I had a really good performance that day. I mean, after the show, I went to shake his hand and thank him for being a good sport. He enjoyed it. But that's not not everybody is going to, I mean, I joked on. It's funny enough. We had another gentleman, also from the UK, on the show, and I actually joked about him and his wife. I didn't know it was him. I hope he didn't feel offended, but
he didn't mention that to me.
He said that. He said, "Oh, I remember you." Yeah.
He remembered being in your audience.
I want people to be like, hey, Alex, I loved your show. Just like, I don't know. I always go to a DJ when I go out. If it's really good, if I really feel the mood of the night, I with my boyfriend more often would just go up to the DJ and say, hey, man, the whole bro thing.
Yeah. Do you get people coming up begging requests and stuff like that?
No. The clubs that I play in usually, there is an etiquette to do.
I feel like it's hard